A very divisive topic resurfaced recently, and I thought it would be interesting to shine a spotlight on it, talk about it for a bit, and reach out for your opinions as fellow video game consumers. I'm talking, of course, about the Horizon Online game being developed by Guerrilla Games. If you never heard about this, let me flash back to the July of last year when Jan Bart van Beek, I'm pretty sure I butchered that name, the studio director of Guerrilla, announced during a conference that the studio is working on a multiplayer game set in the world of Horizon. Back then, this piece of information kinda shook the community. If you go over posts from that period, the reaction is split right down the middle, with some fans questioning why Horizon would need a multiplayer component or a standalone game like this, with others just happy to play more Horizon. A thing of note is, back then we had no idea what the Guerrilla director's statement meant. There was almost zero context for it. A lot of people thought we are talking about a multiplayer mode that will be a part of potential Horizon 3. Some people thought this might be a statement in regards to a Horizon MMO outsourced to NCSoft. And yeah, that's right, I know some of you in the audience will find this out right now. There are two Horizon multiplayer games in the works right now. One being the massive multiplayer online game developed by NCSoft of Aeon and Guild Wars fame. This project is supposedly heading to PCs and mobile devices, and the second project is spearheaded by Guerrilla Games themselves. It will be an action RPG co-op title with little information on it existing, to be honest. Guerrilla Games only confirmed it will feature a new cast of characters and a stylized look. So a bit of a departure from the original franchise. There are rumors that it will be an open world game with base building, but this is not that much to go on. Not to mention just not confirmed by any official sources. And it's really funny reading comments from last year. One user made a fair statement that, quote, "Single player games are Sony's bread and butter. Forcing those out in favor of greedy multiplayer only titles is going to be a disaster." This user received the following reply, and again I quote, "Who says that single player is being forced out?" Well, ladies and gentlemen, as of September 29th, 2024, there's a pretty prominent person who says that single player is indeed being forced out. You just can't make this shit up. September 29th livestream of Spawncast, a video game news-oriented podcast by Spawnwave, featured the prominent video game journalist Jason Schreier, and he had this to say when the group started discussing Horizon franchise as a whole.
And their plan, I mean, Horizon Online is their next project, not whatever the third single player game looks like. So that one might be a ways off.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you guys,
again.
like Sony's, like PlayStation's like live service initiative was no joke. Everybody was like, it's live service games all around, and Horizon is one of the few ones that hasn't been canceled or hasn't come out and flopped the way Concord did. And so yeah, a lot of questions there, but a lot of people are working on that online project.
I feel like if you want to...
So yeah, it seems that Horizon 3 is being pushed back entirely in favor of the elusive Horizon Online game that we just know nothing about, really. This relit the exact same debate that I mentioned from last year, with people arguing whether this is the direction the series should go for. No matter how I or you feel about the Horizon games, it's undeniable that they were successful. Guerrilla brought us an entirely new single-player IP in 2017, an awkward time when indie game industry was not booming as it is right now, and many AAA studios were already departing towards focusing on multiplayer stuff instead, so single-player stories were kinda being left behind, and I'm sure, as many of you remember, there was a huge uproar about that. There still is, to be fair. And now in 2024, seemingly even predating the release of Forbidden West. It seems that Sony convinced the developers with strong incentives, as Schreier put it in his statement, to try and pivot Horizon towards being a multiplayer title. No amount of wishful thinking is going to make this situation less sour for the Horizon fans, I think. We already went through this exact scenario with the likes of Fallout 76. Regardless of the final product's quality, the fans of the single-player game will not cheer on the studio while it's actively moving away from the series' selling points. But now in 2024, a new talking point arose, and I'm sorry, but for the years to come, whenever you bring up Sony and any kind of multiplayer or live service thing, we just cannot ignore Concord. Concord, the game that cost $400 million to make, according to reports online. And there are still stories coming out about this massive L the game industry took as a whole, and how it was built on top of a culture of toxic positivity, where any criticism was dismissed as mindless hate with no structure, and many employees were encouraged to stick their head in the sand to avoid situations that might complicate their work or even endanger their jobs. To hear that a single-player Horizon experience is getting pushed back years into the future in favor of a multiplayer game, while the Concord story is still fresh in everyone's mind, I'm sorry, this just doesn't look all that good. But I'm just one voice in the crowd of millions, so as always I took a deep dive into reactions to this piece of news, and those are the highlights I came back with. I feel like the only thing they could do with this IP for multiplayer is basically make it Horizon Monster Hunter. The stars of Horizon's setting are the machines. The other issue is that Dauntless and Wild Hearts have shown that making the Monster Hunter gameplay loop land is not as easy as Capcom makes it look. This is a sentiment many others share. It would indeed make sense if they made a co-op game akin to Monster Hunter, and while I wish this is what Horizon Online was, I'm not convinced that's what's going to happen. Monster Hunter is not based on games as a service model. The series is receiving sequels that make the previous games obsolete in a way, but it's not one ongoing game the likes of Fallout 76 or Destiny 2. And I think many like it that way because games as a service model is way more predatory in nature. But here's the crux of it all, it also makes way more money thanks to it. Schreier specifically mentioned the Sony's live service initiative, and if you look at both the games released and cancelled by Sony up to now, like Concord, like The Last of Us Online, it's clear they wanted a game that will live, thrive and earn for years to come. So yeah, more like Fallout 76 or Destiny rather than Monster Hunter. This would require the studio to make quite dramatic adjustments to the formula that is already fucking hard to get right. So personally, I would not get my hopes up for that type of game. But if it does happen, hey, I am always willing to give anything in proximity to Monhan a try, so, you know. Imagine taking a talented studio like Guerrilla and forcing them to make live service slop. Followed by another comment that brought up that, yeah, Naughty Dog kind of went through the same thing with The Last of Us Online. I was expecting Horizon 3 to release sometime in 2027. Was looking forward to seeing an entry built from the ground up for PS5. Now I guess I have to wait for the game to be cross-gen between PS5 and PS6 and be released in the early 2030s. This one is just brutal to read, man. I do feel for the fans waiting for Horizon 3, especially since Horizon 2 ends on a sort of a cliffhanger / tease of things to come. It is also by no means a closed story that you can just leave and say to yourself that you're finished with it. And don't get me wrong, there are people excited for this game. There are comments mentioning how Horizon already has the ingredients for a potential great multiplayer game within its single player games, like the world, the combat, the crafting systems. Similarly, there are a lot of voices saying that this project has a lot of potential. So it goes without saying that it's not all doom and gloom over this announcement. The game Guerrilla Games comes up with could turn out as something great that helps the franchise grow. We will just have to stick around long enough for the game to release to confirm which side of this argument had more going for them in the end. Until then, why don't you pitch in? Is Sony making the wrong move by prioritizing this project over another single-player Horizon game? Let me know in the comments below. And remember to subscribe for more gaming news, reviews and other such content from me. I will see you next time.